Ryan Anderson, you said on the Heritage Foundation website today that you found both decisions disturbing. Can you take us through each one, starting with the Defense of Marriage Act?
Sure. In the Defense of Marriage Act, the Supreme Court said that the federal government has to accept whatever the states say about marriage, even for federal policy and for federal law. But this misunderstands federalism. In our system of government, the states are sovereign to define marriage for the purposes of state policy, state benefits, state law. And the federal government's sovereign to define marriage for federal policies in federal law for federal purposes. And what's surprising about this is at the same time when they ruled in the Defense of Marriage Act that the states have this right, they didn't uphold the right of the Californian citizens who went to the ballot box twice to pass a law defining what marriage is. They voted twice on marriage. Twice the citizens of California said marriage is the union of a man and a woman. But the Supreme Court today said that the citizens didn't have standing in court. Because the governor of California and the attorney general refused to do their job of defending California's law, the citizens were defending the law before the Supreme Court. And today the court said you don't have standing.
Someone on your website wrote it and said, isn't this the ultimate conservative ruling? Because it's leaving people's lives to themselves and taking out the federal interference. What would you say to that?
Well, the reason that government's in the marriage business isn't because it cares about the love life of consenting adults. Government's not in the marriage business because it cares about romance. Government's in the marriage business because there's a certain type of union, the union of a man and a woman, that can produce new life. And government wants to make sure that that new life has a mom and a dad. And upholding the institution of marriage is the least restrictive, least coercive way for the government to make sure that children are raised by the man and the woman, the mother and the father that create the children. When this doesn't happen, that's when we've seen government grow. When marriages fall apart, when marriages never take place in the first place, single parenting, divorce and remarriage, cohabitation, this is when the welfare state grows. It's when crime increases. It's when the prison population rises. It's when child poverty increases. It's when social mobility decreases. So everything you can care about, if you care about limited government and you care about the poor, if you care about liberty and social justice, is better served by a healthy marriage culture.
Now you're 31, and a lot of our polls out there are showing that there's more support for marriage equality among people in your age group. How is that affecting you in your own friendships and relationships?
Sure. Look, most of my friends, even the ones that disagree with me, they say this is a reasonable disagreement, that the marriage question is something that people of sound mind and goodwill can disagree about. Some of my friends have, reacted in a way that's, I think, a little inappropriate, but that's fine. The majority say this is an important conversation and we should have the conversation. The courts shouldn't cut the conversation short. So let's continue discussing, continue voting, and let's have citizens make marriage policy.
Finally, where do you go from here on the challenges?
Yeah. So the one nice thing about today's ruling is that the court refused to create a constitutional right to same-sex marriage. The court refused to redefine marriage for the entire country. What that means is citizens in all 50 states can continue to discuss marriage, can continue to explain what marriage is, why marriage matters, and what the consequences are if we redefine marriage. And they can keep going to the ballot box. Already today, the governor of Indiana said that he's going to support a constitutional amendment to the state constitution of Indiana that tells the truth about marriage. And hopefully citizens in all 50 states will continue speaking out boldly on what marriage is.
Thank you very much.
Sure thing.